Who is to blame? That is the question that everyone is asking themselves. Not just people in Valencia as well, but throughout the country. The effect of the floods, that was an infrastructure issue and also a political issue. People told us time and again, every single person, why didn't they let us know? Why didn't they alert us?
Sabían que iba a caer la más grande, no avisaron a la población, no desalojaron a sus gentes, murieron en sus casas sin poder salir.
I'm Sonia Gallego, a journalist, and between us, while I saw tremendous anger at the authorities, I also was struck by the support between people in the affected communities. The climactic event that triggered off the most intense flooding that's been seen in decades in Spain was this phenomenon known as the cold drop. It's where you have a sudden drop of cold air across the Mediterranean Sea. Now, what climate scientists are saying is that because the Mediterranean Sea is warming, a result of climate change, that these weather events are becoming far more intense. And we saw just how much more intense they are becoming because simply the sheer volume of water that fell in certain places. I don't think anyone was really quite prepared for just how devastating it was. There were cars strewn everywhere, stacked on top of one another in this crazy, chaotic, haphazard way, blocking roads all along the motorways. People themselves called it apocalyptic, and that pretty much defines it. Furniture from people's buildings spilled out across the roads, and people wandering around in a state of shock. This, for me, was absolutely surreal, extraordinary, terrifying as well, but also incredibly devastating. We saw so many people who were desperate for people to see what conditions were like there. That was incredibly emotional. Just speaking to people who saw us, we were walking with a camera, and would shout at us, grab us, were taking us to places saying, show the world what's happening here. It was an opportunity for them to be able to relay their shock, their anger, their utter confusion and their trauma. These are people who had just seen loved ones, neighbours, all of a sudden being lifted by a flood of muddied water and taking away their loved ones. It was something that was so terrifying, but also remembering that you're in a city like Valencia, one of the biggest cities in Spain, and yet in a city like this, with its infrastructure, with its wealth, it happened there. Spain is a country with devolved regions, and the community of Valencia is an autonomous region. It has its own regional government, and a lot of questions being asked about what exactly was the leader of the regional government, Carlos Mazón, doing. It turns out that on the day that flooding struck, it's being reported that he was having a long lunch with a journalist and not giving these warnings too much thought. So when people are angered at the authorities, they are also angered at the regional authorities that were supposed to have been responsible for taking charge and putting an effective plan in place. That did not happen. The initial clear up, the search and rescue came down to the citizens of those towns and the volunteers that came from outside to help. It was astounding, an extraordinary scene of seeing a community pull together. There's also a sense of pride that it was like, you know what, we didn't need the government to do it, we help ourselves. I know it sounds utterly surreal that in the middle of a disaster, you have people who are trying to keep their spirits up, but that's also really crucial as well. And that sense of pride that they were doing it themselves, that really sort of carried them forward.